Hello, it's Wayne here from Whiskey Alpha, and today should be the day. Unfortunately, today is not the day. So today was the day that I had been booked in for my skills test, but although we've got a reasonable cloud base here at Elstree, 2,500 feet, we have issues with fog and low cloud further north, where we wanted to do the nav too, and also the skills. We've canned it, and it's rebooked for a couple of days, so hopefully the weather in a couple of days is a little bit better. Hello, this is Wayne, and it's the morning after the night before, whatever that means, and I'm here in the car with Wifey. So hi Wifey, she's the taxi today. Yes, today's the day. I am now driving to the airfield. Weather looks good, TAFs are checked, no TAMs are checked, etc, etc, and apart from the lovely traffic that I'm having to deal with, you know, everyone should have flying cars, that way we wouldn't have to deal with traffic like this. Flying cars, yeah, you need, what do you need for that? You need a flying license. Yep, so I am off to the airfield to do my skills test, so fingers crossed, I'll let you know how it goes. So, after nearly a 3-hour flight for my skills test, I didn't pass. I ended up with a partial, so at least half of it's done, complete, finished. So a partial on the navigation, despite the fact making a few mistakes, and PFLs and steep turns to do on skills. So I've got one more lesson to do, and then retake part of the skills test with my CFI, and then hopefully I'm fully fledged. But that was hard work. Quite frankly, it was brutal, and I'll actually do some breakdowns of what I learnt, what went on. But at the moment, I'm going to go and have some lunch. Bye. So, how was the skills test? Simple answer is, it was brutal. It was hard work. Beyond anything I've ever flown before. It was a long flight. Everything was thrown at me. Most things I managed to cope with. Few things I didn't manage to cope with, and there were things that went wrong. But overall, I would describe it as brutal. It was hard work. The plan was to fly from Elstree to Peterborough Conington and then across to Oxford. I knew that there was a plan for a diversion somewhere in the second leg, and I knew that once the navigation phase was over, then I moved on to the skills side. Navigation took off from Elstree, flew up to the VRP. Part of the plan was to do a south to north transit across Luton's Class D airspace. It went reasonably well, a little bit far away from the centre line of the runway. Air traffic control wanted us to effectively go over the numbers on the runway, but generally not too bad. Flew up towards Peterborough Conington. There was a point towards the end of that leg where I'm like, I can't see the airfield. I knew that there was a railway line on one side, I knew that there was a road to the right, and I knew that if I hit Peterborough, I'd gone too far. Google Maps, you saved my life. I do a lot of my planning looking at Google Maps before I actually do the flight, so I can get an idea what is out there. But one warning about using Google Maps, which I found on a previous navigation flight, Google Mapping is always out of date, so you might be looking at something that was there 2 or 3 years ago and now isn't there, so bear that in mind. Got to Peterborough Conington, did the turn, now heading towards Oxford, doing my checks, settling down, expecting at some point to be given a diversion. The flight examiner suddenly turns around to me and says, I want you to do diversion to Henlow, and I want you to do it from here. He picks the map up and points to a point, gives me the map back. Okay, bear in mind I'm flying the plane at this time. I pick the map up, I do my little mark, I draw my line to Henlow, I get out my DP1 ruler. Incidentally, if you've never used a DP1 ruler for doing diversions, it's a great tool. Practice using one. Anyway, do my diversion, draw it on the map, and then he points out to me that I've actually done it from the wrong point. Right, okay. He points to on the map where he wants it done, which is another road about 5 miles further on. Okay, I've got to now do the whole thing again. So again, draw the line. Bear in mind, I'm flying the plane like this. I've got the map on my lap. I've got my knee board. It's a bit all over the place. Anyway, draw the line, calculate the diversion, calculate the heading, and then realise that I've actually gone past the point where he said he wanted to start to. Things are beginning to unravel here. Okay, Aviate, navigate, communicate. Fly the plane. Right. I'm coming up to the south of Northampton. I know I will do the diversion from a point which I know, which is the south of Northampton. I can see it on the map and I can see it ahead. Okay, I tell the flight examiner this is what I'm going to do. He doesn't say anything. They never do. They just sit there going like this. So I've now done this, calculated this diversion for the third time. Drawn a line, calculate the heading, okay, tell the examiner that this is the heading I'm going to take and this is the anticipated time, wrote everything down, make the turn, fly. Okay, relax, right. Frida checks, check the map. Okay, Cranfield is coming up. Cranfield is quite a busy ATZ. It also has instrument feathers, so I'm about to fly through one of these. So I'm thinking, I think I need to talk to Cranfield. Okay, so I do a temporary frequency change, currently with Luton Radar. Temporary frequency change request to Cranfield. Luton Radar turn around and go, I think that would be a good idea. Clearly, I'm getting a little bit close to Cranfield. Not close enough for them to worry and actually tell me I have to do something. But clearly they were like, is this person going to do what we think he should be doing? Frequency change over to Cranfield. Cranfield approach, tell them who I am, what I'm planning to do. Cranfield approach, were like, yeah, carry on, no problem. Here's the Squawk ID. Do the transit, back to Luton Radar, checking my plog and thinking, I think I can see Henlo in the distance. My plog says I shouldn't be seeing it yet, or maybe I should. Distance is always an interesting one to try and estimate looking out the window. This green cross is coming up. I'd been over Henlo a couple of times before, so I knew roughly what it looked like. And now I have to go through that process of take the map, check position of roads, railway lines, conurbations to basically say, I know that's Henlo. In the UK, we don't have airfields that have big signs or water towers close to it saying, this is Henlo. You have to actually ascertain it from things on the ground. So I'm looking at it thinking, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is Henlo. My plog's wrong in terms of timings, and later on I found that the wind was actually quite substantially out compared with what I planned on the wind. But I'm pretty happy this is Henlo. I told the flight examiner I'm pretty certain that it's Henlo. They're the roads that I'm expecting. That's the conurbation. It matches the map. That's Henlo. And the examiner looks at me and goes, okay, now I want you to fly on this heading, which I think was the point where I went, phew, I think I might have completed the navigation side of things, because now we're going to go on to skills. At Elstree, we tend to have two areas for skills training, one to the west of Luton's airspace and one to the right of Luton's airspace, or the east, I should say. I'm an aviator, it's the east. And we are now in the training area. So started off with a bit of general handling, then moved on to stalls. I didn't have the same issues that I had with stalls during my mock exam, in so much that I knew what stall number 1, stall number 2 and stall number 3 meant. They went okay. Moved on to doing steep turns and they weren't great. I couldn't get the nose position right. I got to 45-ish and then I would drift down. I started losing altitude. He asked me to do a left-hand one. He asked me to do a right-hand one. I asked if I could do the right-hand one again. It was clear to me, he wasn't saying anything. He was just there writing notes. It was clear to me that these weren't great. Anyway, moved on. PFLs, cut the throttle, trim for best glide speed, look out for a field, check the wind, tried to do an engine restart, do my radio call, 7700, brief my passenger. Okay, the field's coming up, not wonderfully happy with its position. Yep, I'm going to move fields. So I did a bit of a turn, moved on to a next field, did the same again, moved on to a next field. Happy with this field, okay, dropping down, put the power on, brought me back up to cruising altitude. And the first thing he asked me was, where was the wind? And I told him what I thought the wind was because I'd written it down on my map. He looked at me and went, so why didn't you land into the wind? And I was like, I thought I did. And no, it turns out I'd managed with my turns, having moved from one field to another field, I'd actually landed with a tailwind. Oops, not great. Not a lot was said. Moved on. VOR position fix, pick my beacon. One key thing with VOR position fixes, piece of advice I was given, make sure you do the ident correctly. If you do not do the ident, you're going to fail. It's an instant fail. Did the VOR fix, looked out and went, well, I know where I am. VOR fix is there, but it's not near a big town, and the big town is slightly little bit further up. Okay, what do? let's check the VOR fix. I was pretty certain I was correct on the actual fix itself. Let's check what I've drawn on the map. Oh, one of the lines was slightly out, redrew the line, slap bang on top of the town. Great, VOR fix, nailed it. Then I had to do a track onto a VOR beacon. Okay, twiddle twiddle, start tracking onto the beacon. Things are beginning to relax a little bit because we're now heading towards home. There is an element at this point I'm thinking, I am just so shattered, I'm so tired, I just want to land. That's all I want to do. Anyway, back to the airfield, overhead join, a couple of little quirks on the overhead join, but got into the circuit. First landing was a flapless, which I've done a few times, I've done a few practices, I'm reasonably happy with that. Did the flapless landing. Incidentally, there's a video somewhere, link up here or here, of that particular landing, which was taken by my wife. Have a laugh. Back into the circuit, and as we're coming in for the second landing, which this time was going to be a precision stroke short field landing, we had a Cessna in the circuit, so I ended up having to do a go around. One of the problems at Elstree is we have Cessnas who are a little bit slower than the PA-28s I normally fly, so we end up with sometimes a little bit of a conflict in terms of speed. Went around the circuit, came back, 3 stages of flap, 65 knots, bang on the numbers, little tiny bit of float, but managed to get it down, taxied off the runway, taxied to fuel, fueled the plane up. Flight examiner gave me a hand to push it back into parking position, and then he was, "You're right, I'm off, I'll see you in the office." I was completely and utterly mentally and physically shattered. My wife turned up at that point. How did it go? And it was just like, no, please, just, I'll come and talk to you in a bit. Went into the office and had the debrief. Flight examiner said, it's not going to beat about the bush. I'm going to give you a partial. And I was like, oh, thank you. Partial on my navigation. So I managed to complete the navigation to the level that he required, but I managed it. I did fail the skill side of things. The 2 big ones were steep turns and practice force landings. The fact that I landed with a tailwind is a big issue, and completely accept that. I know what I did wrong. A few other couple of little points that he picked up, but nothing massive and nothing major. So I'm now in a situation where I've got a couple of revision lessons booked, and then hopefully a repeat of the skill side, and then I might have actually finished this. That's enough of me waffling on. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, please give me a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I keep promising people things will get more interesting, and hopefully they will, particularly once I have a license, because then I can go flying. At the moment, most of my flying is round and round in circles, or trying to see how much I can upset my stomach. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, be safe, have fun.